Hi guys, and welcome to another video. In this one I just thought I would show you how I prepare my miniatures for paint. We've got a couple of characters coming up on the How to Paint the Indomitus Necron series, and I thought as their characters it would be a good idea to make sure that we get them looking as good as possible, and a part of that is ensuring that the miniature is prepared for the paint properly. So before I dive into that, I will just introduce you to the tools that I use to do that. I just want to mention quickly that the method of preparing these miniatures is going to be useful regardless of what miniature you're preparing. The principles are the same. I'm just obviously referring specifically to the Necrons from the Indomitus box because that's currently what I'm working on. So just jumping into the tools quickly, I'm going to start off with a decent pair of clippers. These are fairly heavy duty clippers from Games Workshop, and they get the job done, to be honest. But you'll need a set of clippers, not necessarily the Games Workshop ones, but a good set of clippers will do you well. Then a hobby knife, just to sort of tidy up any spare sprue, excess sprue on the miniatures after you finish clipping them off and get into some difficult to reach places. And then this tool, I absolutely love this tool. It's a mould line remover from GW. This is essential I think, in any hobbyist's toolbox for helping to remove mold lines and stuff like that. I then use two different plastic paints. I've got some Tamir extra thin cement and the just Citadel plastic glue, just regular plastic glue. Both are exactly the same glues. This is just slightly thicker, slightly more viscous than this, and you can see how sort of runny this is in the bottle. I'm mainly using this on these push to fit models, just because it's so runny. It uses sort of capillary action just to absorb into any of the gaps. So like when you do the push fit stuff, you just dab that brush around where the push fit is and it just soaks all the way in and creates a really strong bond. This I'll normally use on non-push fit miniatures on any parts of the model that are load bearing, so legs, bodies, arms, just to get that initial bond there. And then I'll usually go around with the Tamir extra thin once this bond is set, just to give it some extra strength. Right, now let's jump into how I actually remove parts from the sprue. What I have here is some more of the Necron warriors out of the Indomitus box. These are the 10 that I'll be assembling with the Gauze Reapers. I've already started putting some of them together here. This number 16 is the next part that I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my clippers, and what you want to do is with your clippers is you want to sort of cut ever so slightly away from the model. You don't want to have your clippers flush against the model because you can cause scarring and tears in the plastic, which will ruin the look of the model. So you want to cut ever so slightly away so that there's just a bit of that sprue left on the end there. So if I cut that, you can see that there is a bit of the sprue just left on the miniature there. And I'll do the same up here. It's a bit more difficult to get the clippers in on the side because of this sort of wire decoration here. But again, it's the same sort of principle. You want to leave a bit of sprue on the end there. So I'll just finish cutting out the parts for this particular warrior, and then I'll be back to show you what I do next. I now have all the parts for my Necron warrior cut out, and as you can see, I've sort of got bits of sprue, big lumps of sprue sort of sticking out there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to use my clippers again, and very gently, now that I can sort of get more control over what I'm actually cutting, I'm just going to go back in and cut ever so slightly closer to the model, just to remove sort of as much of that chunk of sprue as I possibly can without actually damaging the miniature underneath. And then once you feel as though you can't get any more off, just leave it, because you don't want to sort of risk ruining the miniature, and then just go around and try and find any other areas where you can use your clippers to get more of the sprue off. So like on here, I've got a bit more on here on his chest. So just go around the miniature again and just try and get as much of that sprue off with your clippers as possible, and it will make your life a bit easier for the next step. I've been around the miniature now and sort of removed as much of that sprue as I think I can safely using the clippers. And now we're going to be moving on to our craft knife, and sort of usual disclaimer here: if you're a child, ask an adult to do this before you, so that you don't risk cutting yourself. And it's just going to be a case now of very gently with your craft knife going around and cut away from yourself as well. Don't do what I'm doing and sort of cut towards yourself. I'm my own worst enemy with this. I've cut myself loads doing this, but I just find it easier. and just go around and gently cut off. I should really do this properly for you guys, so I'll try and do it this way. Go around and just use your craft knife and just remove any of that excess sprue, just with your craft knife, until it's nice and smooth. Just be gentle with it, a little bit at a time, till you get a nice smooth finish. Looking at that, you'll be able to tell when it's smooth because you can sort of run your nail over it and you won't feel it catching. So like that, and then that's fine. And just go around your miniature doing that, and we'll be back when that's done. I've been around the entire Necron warrior now, all the pieces, just sort of removing all the excess sprue with my craft knife. It's now time to come in and remove some of the mould lines, and also just to tidy up a bit further the bits that we've been chipping away at with the craft knife. And for that you'll need this, which is the mould line remover. And that's to remove these mould lines, which are a natural part of the moulding process of making the warriors. You can see there's one just along the side of the leg here. Now if we didn't remove this, that would catch some of the paint when we do our dry brushing, and you'll get a very noticeable line where the highlight catches on that, and it'll just sort of detract from the final finish of the miniature. So to get rid of that, it's super simple with this. You can use your craft knife as well, but this is designed specifically for it. It's sort of thicker, so it doesn't jitter quite so much as it's running across the plastic. And you just want to very lightly, so hardly any pressure at all, just sort of run this along that mould line to remove it. As you can see, I'm hardly putting any pressure down here at all, and you can see that the plastic is scraping away. You can see that mould line's now gone. So if you just do that around the entire miniature, you'll mainly see them on these Necron warriors. It's mainly around the legs here, as you can see on the insides. It's not too bad on the inside of that one. But you also just want to neaten up the areas that you've sort of chipped away at with your craft knife. So if we just sort of run the mould line remover over that as well, just to make sure that that's extra smooth. And you won't notice that when it comes to painting. And the other areas where it's noticeable on these warriors is just on the arms, just on the armour. You can sort of see just on the front and back of the arms there. So what I'll do is I'll just get that finished and then I'll be back. Alright, with all the mould lines removed, this warrior is now ready for gluing together. You technically don't need to glue these together because they are push fit, but I just like the added security of knowing that there is a bond there. But it's completely up to you. You don't need to glue them together if you don't want to. So what I tend to do, especially with these push fit ones, is I will push fit them together. I will take advantage of there being that push fit ability there. But then once that's done, I'll then just grab my Tamiya extra thin. Don't need a lot of this on the brush at all. And I will just dab the end of the brush against that, if you can see that. Just dab the end of the brush against that joint there. And capillary action will take the glue from the bristles down into that joint. You can sort of see it glistening there. And then that's gone down into there, and it'll just bond the two pieces together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to finish putting this warrior together, using that Tamiya extra thin as and when I need to. I'll be back once the warrior is finished. And once the glue dries, the Necron warrior is ready for priming. If you just push fit these guys together, then you can just go straight out and get to priming them now. But I'll possibly let these sit for at least an hour, preferably overnight, before I take them outside to give them a spray. But what I'll do beforehand though is just to make sure that I'm not going to catch any loose bits of plastic in the spray. I'm just going to take an old soft brush, just gently sort of brush over the miniature, just to make sure that I've removed any of these sort of spare shards of plastic that have come off as part of the cutting or mould line removing process. You don't want any of that getting caught up in your miniature. But yeah, if you follow those steps, you should find that you've got a bunch of warriors or characters or Space Marines. As I say, this method can be used for anything that are ready for priming and painting, and you won't get any of those pesky mold lines getting in the way while you're trying to do it. And that's it from me for another video. As I normally say, if you got any value out of this at all, I really appreciate it if you could drop the video a like. If you're going to be interested in seeing these guys getting painted up, and the rest of the Indomitus box in the future, then consider subscribing as well. And I'll see you later. Cheers. Bye.